Right, we're back with another episode of Down Under the Crossbar podcast. We're a couple of days late, Steve and I, but we've got a very good excuse, as that Steve and his beautiful wife Stacey have welcomed their baby girl Sophie over the weekend, mate. Congratulations. I think you were saying she's sleeping pretty well at the moment, but you'll be hoping maybe she's awake for around 3:30 this Sunday morning when Arsenal plays Fulham. But mate, congratulations.
Great,
How's it all going?
great to see you, BB. Thanks very much, mate. Yeah, been a fantastic weekend for the family. Birth of our beautiful baby girl over the weekend. The best part about the whole thing, BB, is I was talking to her in the womb last week and saying, listen, we've got Newcastle away, Olympiacos at home, West Ham at home. You need to make sure that you get through the international break, do it on the weekend so that everyone's settled. And then I'll just clear it with the missus now to see if I can get the baby up at 3:30 for our big game against Fulham on Sunday morning. So it's just classic, mate. She's already listening. Already listening. Oh, yeah. She's already listening to Dad, mate. So that's all you can say. It's like, listen, just give it some time, please. We've got international break this weekend. No footy. This is perfect. So it's all worked out absolutely stunningly, mate. No, so look, things are great, mate. Thanks very much, and appreciate you allowing me a couple of days just to get on for this week's episode, and then we'll be back to normal for all of our viewers as we grow exponentially. We went up, 10-15% in viewers last week. So thanks very much, everybody. Keep spreading the word of our little fun show here, mate, as we go on. But yeah, great to be here, mate. Wonderful times, happy times. You know very well what it's all about. And yeah, wonderful, mate. We're all excited and ready for football to kick off again.
Mate, I'm going to message you at about 3 o'clock Sunday morning. Just make sure you're preparing a bottle or however she's eating at the moment, because I think back, I've got two. My girls are 8 and 5, and they both slept really well. But I had these big visions of our oldest Gemma, staying awake to watch the Tour de France with me, and what was on at that point? Something else was on. She slept through the night. The youngest Lucy as well. Get up, watch football. Nah, they went through. I know that's maybe not what young parents all want to hear at the moment, that my two kids slept really well and I was sitting up alone at night as usual. But hopefully you get some of those moments, mate. Have you been
Love
able
it,
to
mate.
watch
Yeah,
the
that's
international break?
I have, mate. Yep, been keeping an eye on all the international stuff, which has been fabulous. So I think first point of call for us, mate, probably talk about Socceroos, mate. I think Australia's had another fabulous win against Canada in Montreal on, I think it was Friday morning our time, or Saturday. Could have been Saturday morning our time, but a great win for us, I think, because going away to these places and getting results has always been difficult for us when it's non-Asian specific qualifiers away from home against perhaps lesser opposition, or even the stronger sides, the Saudi Arabias and the Japans of the world when it comes to our side of the qualifying world. So to win in Canada, I think it's a great result. And don't get me wrong, it's not like beating England like we did at I think it was at White Hart Lane back in 2001 with Harry Kewell scoring a double at the time, and everyone going, wow, what a moment for Australian football. But I think it's important to note that racking up big important wins is huge for us, BB. So great result for us. Nestroy on fire at the moment. He really is, turning into a bit of our sort of golden boy at the moment. He's playing well for Watford, banging in free kicks and looking sharp up top. So Tony Popovic has done a great job, BB. We're 12 games undefeated, 7 wins in a row, and looking to make that 8 against, the USA side that'd be up for it. We're playing in Colorado at one of their strong bases there. In the base of the Rocky Mountains there in Denver, I think, just outside of Denver. So it'd be a good game for us, good test for us. So that's been fabulous, mate. Been great to watch the Socceroos, and I think I saw a nice article in your wonderful newspaper yesterday. I'm still buying the paper these days, mate. Call me old-fashioned, but I do love the physical.
Yeah.
I do love the physical paper you guys produce, mate. So please keep it up. But I was reading yesterday, the fact that, for Australian sporting teams, we're probably on the best streak of most of them. The Australian men's football team is even doing better than the Matildas at the moment. Doing better than the Kangaroos. I mean, the Wallabies unfortunately have had a bit of a rough spell of late, but we're looking better. The cricketers, so on and so forth, and to really get behind our boys as we head into a World Cup, mate. So yeah, tell us what you think, mate, because I think it's a wonderful time to be a Socceroos fan. The key point I wanted to raise is that we're 25th in the world at the moment. Another win against the US and some more November wins will have us in the strongest possible ranking for the qualifying pots which will be drawn December the 5th in Washington, D.C. And if we can end up in the top 20, mate, then I tell you what, we won't end up in pot one, but we'll still end up in sort of like a pot two, if we can, which means that whilst we will get a big team like a Brazil, a Germany, a France, or something like that, if we can end up with a Qatar, an Angola, Costa Rica, perhaps those type of teams, an Iceland, whatever the case may be, then it's winnable for us. So, mate, good position to be in, and I'm excited for us.
Yeah, really strong position at the moment, and feels quite settled as well. Like there's you think of Australian football generally, from the Socceroos to the Matildas to the A Leagues and everything else. It just, in the last sort of decade, it has always just felt a little bit stressed, a little bit haphazard, a little bit hectic. But certainly with the Socceroos at the moment, it feels as stable as I've sort of remember it being, as stable as sort of you can possibly think. It feels like 25th in the world, going to play the US. Things are moving in the right direction. The squad's good. You kind of know who's playing. There's no crazy pressure on Popovic. Qualification done. Now you're looking at, can you get up into pot two? You're looking at groups, and like you say, with the expanded 48 team tournament, it just opens up a whole new sort of realm of possibilities. Where getting out of the group, obviously that's going to be a number one sort of marker, but then you're looking at how far you can go and all that kind of stuff. So really exciting times, and likewise, it's sort of on a different sort of level and different expectations. My All Whites as well qualified, playing Norway minus Haaland. I think today or overnight or something.
Got a good result, mate. A 1-1 draw. I thought that's a really good result. Had the lead in that match. I think conceded sort of in the second half, but mate, I think that's a great result. For the All Whites to be over there travelling against top quality opposition and performing well, mate. You've got to be really pleased with that. I think the squad's coming together, and it's a chance for New Zealand. They'll avoid Australia and sort of, other opposition, you'd think. Well, actually, I'm not sure about that, actually, because there's still Oceania, technically. So, OFC. So, look, we might see Australia and New Zealand in a group, you never know. But at the same time, I think you've got to be pleased with that too, BB. It's a great time for New Zealand football as well as Australia.
And some really cool stories over the last sort of couple of days with qualifications and stuff. Cape Verde qualifying, I think they a population of sort of 500,000 or something like that.
Correct. Yep.
Look at some of the goals they needed to beat. Who was it? Eswatini or something to qualify over the weekend, and
it was. You nailed it, mate. You nailed it. You're telling me you've been camping and you haven't been keeping an eye on it. I'll tell you what, mate. That's incredible knowledge, mate. That's exactly what the situation was, and they beat out the indomitable Lions of Cameroon. The world famous Cameroon team that burst onto the scene in 1994. They've out-qualified them, basically, and done it easily. So you're spot on.
Incredible. Now, I stumbled across the story last week, and I thought, look, that's one of those ones. I think it's, per capita or population-wise, Cape Verde is the smallest country, and the next smallest is New Zealand. So 500,000 to about 5.5 million. So pretty good. And look, I understand some of the criticisms of this 48-team expanded tournament. I get it, but at the same time, it delivers incredible storylines like this one, and there's going to be more. There's going to be plenty more in the lead up to the World Cup and at the World Cup, and even Italy's going to have to probably go through get a qualifier. It's correct. It's just so many storylines, and I do. I remember when I first, a couple of years back, whenever it was, when they said, 48-team comp for the tournament, and I think, oh, mate, that's, just blatant money grab, and how's it going to work, blah, blah, blah. But I can live with it for things like this. The All Whites, again, we last time we qualified was 2010. Only team to go through that tournament undefeated, by the way. We should have beaten
3-0 draws, baby.
We got a 1-1. We got a 1-1 in there.
Sorry. Yeah.
We were, what happened? Oh, we had, it wasn't as egregious as Socceroos versus Italy in '06, but we had a draw with Italy, and I think it was another contentious penalty from memory. But Winston Reid scoring a late equaliser, I think off a Shane Smelt's free kick to score our first ever World Cup goal in our first game against Slovakia or Slovenia. I can't remember which now. But yeah, things like that. Now we're back in the World Cup, back on the biggest stage. And look, it's one of those things that I'm happy enough to make that sacrifice, I suppose, to broaden the competition.
I think
We're a couple of years removed from that, but what do you think?
spot on, mate. Look, you made wonderful points there, and there's two big things I'm going to say. It's telling that at the moment, and just coming up in the last few weeks, what we have seen is UEFA come out now. They're going to put out what they're calling a discussion paper about reviewing the qualifying system. There's been some big critics, and I think reasonably over the last couple of weeks that have said, look, the qualifying needs a revamp from UEFA, and international football as a whole, doesn't necessarily need a revamp. They continue to talk about the player welfare stuff, and that's maybe a topic for another day because I've got some really strong opinions on that. But basically, what's happened is UEFA have recognised now that the continuous, Norway pumping Latvia, England beating Estonia away 6-0. Like, the qualifying needs to change. I love what you said about the new storylines. It's crucial. You need Cape Verde qualifying. You need, teams making it for the very first time, because what it is doing is that, yes, the traditionalists of, your Germany's always going to be there, your France are going to be there, but football, if it's going to continue to be the biggest game in the world, which I think it's not really threatened, but at the same time, to get that worldwide interest, you need different stories, because the world's changing, the media is changing. You're at the heart of this, right? You in particular, in that you write for an old school newspaper, but you also do stuff like this now, where you're creating wonderful content online and it being hybrid, right? But if it's just the same story every time, people are going to get sick of it, and that's going to make the whole process in between a Euros and a World Cup even worse. It's going to be like, who cares? Let's get me to the Euros when we've got Italy versus Germany in a quarterfinal, and we've got France and, Sweden again, and that sort of thing. So the fact that they're doing it, I'm okay with it. I mean, at the end of the day, the 48-team World Cup is just going to see one extra round. You're going to see a different level of qualifier. It's going to be similar to the Champions League. You're going to have a top 8 that get a round off. You're going to have a round of 32 into then a round of 16. I like the structure of it. I think it's good. The second thing I wanted to touch on as well is that the way that FIFA is going with all of this, and I'll make a brief point on it now, but they keep talking about player welfare and the people are playing too much. The bottom line is that the guys that start every week in the Premier League and every week for their country, your Martin Zubamendi's, your Rodri's when fit, your Alexis McAllister's when fit, they're the only guys, BB, who have these issues. Because at the end of the day, you've got 11 or 12 guys that play every week and then start every game with their national team. Outside of that, you've got another 15 players who might play 25 games a year as part of their club, and then they're going to go and maybe sit on the bench. Look at David Raya. What a player. He can't beat Unai Simon for the Spanish team, right? So he's not playing now. He goes away, but he's not playing. My point there is that what it means is that you've almost got to be better at squad management now. And this is where I think your Guardiolas and Klopp, to an extent, when he was there, Tedder's, they've got to get better at managing their squads. You've got these big squads, start using them properly. And that means now, we were just talking about our Arsenal situation, BB, where you've got Calafiori's just played 2 games. Timber's played 2 full games. Saliba's played 2 full games. Gabriel's played 2 full games. Zubamendi's been 2 full games. Marino's played 2 full games and scoring. Martinelli's played. All of our guys, I mean, Victor Gyökeres, I mean, that's a story. Sweden's going to miss out on a World Cup again because they're hopeless. But Victor Gyökeres has just played 2 games as well. Saka's played 2 games. Right, how do we manage this now? We've got Fulham away. Can you get away with a winning there with a lesser team and getting ready for Atletico? That's my point there. So I like what they're doing with it. They've got to get better at, if they're going to argue this player welfare thing, they've got to get way better at it, because it's like, mate, you're only 10 of your guys that are like this. If just imagine, you remember, you're a League One footballer, you play for Southampton, you play for Watford, or you play for even Brighton in the Premier League, and you might start half your games for Brighton and don't play for international. None of them are ever complaining that they've played too much. It's like, mate, I've played 4 games in 4 weeks and now I've got 2 weeks off, man. I want to get back out there. So that's all I'll say there. I love how you summarised that. I think done properly, more football is good, and I think this World Cup will be good. Where FIFA have let themselves down is the ticket prices. I don't know if you've seen those, BB, but the bare minimum seat to the worst game, the worst game, which I'm assuming would be something like Seattle for a group game between two not so good teams. You're talking 100 US for your cheapest ticket. In Qatar, that cheapest ticket was $14. So
Wow.
your opening match tickets for this World Cup are like $1,500 US. Your World Cup final seats minimum are like $7,000 US. They're not even hiding it. Like a Super Bowl, you always hear, "Oh, mate, getting a ticket's $8,000, $10,000." They're not even hiding this. They're just like, you know what, this is what it is. So I'll leave it at that, mate, on the Socceroos, the international stuff. But it's been a fascinating couple of weeks, and I think telling from UEFA, BB, they've put out a paper to say that this is the first steps of saying the qualifying process isn't working anymore. I think, last point, in South America it works, and those teams continue to stay strong because it's an insulated qualifying system with 10 teams that they're always playing each other and getting better and then testing themselves out a bit. Asia, similar to a lesser extent, but you're always playing a Saudi Arabia, a Japan, a Korea, an Iraq, Iran, testing yourself in a qualifying process with some easier games. Problem is, you look at England's qualifying group in UEFA, mate. I think it's Latvia, Andorra, Albania, Serbia, and unless Serbia is at their best, which we've seen from Serbia and Croatia over the years at times, unless when they're good, but when they're not, it's just an absolute piss take. Like England have 21 points out of 21, goal difference of plus 30. Norway's the same, goal difference of plus 26, pissing it in. So they've got to fix it. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. What I did want to ask you, mate, was heading into this final round of qualifiers, how big of a blow do you think it'll be if Italy don't make it? Because this will be the third World Cup in a row that don't make it. They're going to need a result against Norway, which they can get, but the problem is still then their goal difference is still miles behind. We're talking 16, I think, is the difference. Even if they then win their last game, they'll have to go through a qualifier. How big of a blow will it be to not see, your four-time world champions there at another World Cup?
Three in a row missing out, like just unreal. And you made some really good points there about squad size and opening up the competition, which I think we'll get to shortly. We have a few other things we'll talk about, but I grew up basically. We'll get into this stuff too, but I grew up watching or like following or supporting Italy as like a national team at World Cups and at big tournaments because the New Zealand never had a team, right? So and the grassroots football soccer in New Zealand just didn't really exist in the same way as it did, watching Premier League or following Serie A. We used to follow it in 442 magazines and World Soccer that would come like a month after.
Oh my God, absolutely.
You'd be reading about a champion like preview for the Champions League, and we've already watched it 2 days ago. Kind of thing. But that's how we
So
this
late.
is, before the internet in the mid to late 90s. So, and I used to follow Italy, and that was my sort of team. I got on there, as you know, love Roberto Baggio, my favorite player of all time, and would always, read those magazines. Like, well, look at the scores. They had a couple of pages worth of scores and whatnot, and that's how we learned about transfers as well. I remember to Nielsen, setting a world record transfer, and it was only like 23 million euros or pounds at the time. Anyway, what I mean is to have no Italy at a third World Cup, and not just a third World Cup, but your big expanded World Cup, you break through into the US as well, and Canada and Mexico too. But to not have Italy there, meanwhile they've won a Euro and they made the knockouts of the Euros last year. It's just a bizarre. I think we mentioned a few weeks ago. It's just a bizarre setup in Italian football where it's just the cycle of success to mayhem. Every decade you're going to have like a Serie A, serious sort of whether it's match fixing or off-field sort of scandals that rock the comp, and teams get relegated down to Serie B. You can almost set your watch to it. Like like 05, it was something similar happened, and then they go and win a World Cup. Back in 1982, something similar happened then, and they go and won the World Cup in Spain in 1982. So maybe they need a clean out like that to bounce back. But not having Italy, look, yes, a massive blow. As an Arsenal fan, Ricardo Calafiori just doing what he does for Arsenal. Just he's nominally a left back, but you might see him on the right wing. You might see him playing striker. You wouldn't be shocked to
He's
see him in
everywhere.
goals. Yeah, he's bloody everywhere. Um, so that's my thoughts on it as well. But you mentioned UEFA. We have sort of a I suppose a run sheet that we want to get to. But I think you talk about UEFA making these changes, and I know you want to talk about domestic competitions taking games international. So we've got AC Milan coming down to play Perth, and you've got Barcelona playing a game in Miami. Two very different circumstances, but they've kind of been tied together. And I don't know whether that was purposeful. This announcement about a week ago that they lumped them in together to try and slip one under the radar. Maybe I'm not sure, but
Mm-hmm.
I have feelings on it. I have feelings on AC Milan coming to Perth. It's certainly a different situation. I think the Winter Olympics, I think it's an opening ceremony or something like
Spot on.
that. So they've got to move it, it's come down here. So I have thoughts on that. I also have thoughts on the Barca one, but I know you have strong opinions on how, particularly how UEFA came to this decision. So what do you think? What's your approach to it? How are you feeling about it?
I love it, mate. Let's get into this a little bit. Let's talk about it now. Where we're at is that you've got a situation where I think a lot of the teams in the Premier League and in European football know how strong their leagues are, BB. They know how strong their teams are. They know how strong their brands are. What they have seen, though, is an influx of teams from American sports being the leaders of this, taking their games overseas for massive amounts of revenue, massive amounts of brand exposure, massive amounts of merchandise, and successfully spreading the word of their competitions and their sports around the world. The NFL has to be seen as the leader of this. What you've got is an NFL, which I think it's got to be in what, BB, but it'd be 10 years. I think the Jags, or 12 years, they've been taking games to Wembley. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium have held games. They've now gone and expanded games to Sao Paulo in Brazil. They've gone to, I think it's Munich in Germany. They took a game. They've taken a game recently offshore as well. They took it to one other country. It's a bit more obscure. I can't think of where it was. But they've done
Melbourne.
that.
They're coming to Melbourne.
They're coming to Melbourne next year to have a game as well. So what they've done is they've basically set up a system where they can take their product around the world and make more money from it. Now, let's talk about the history of this quickly. You've got Barcelona, who tried to do this a little while back in around about 2020, 2021, where they started to float the idea of this, knocked on the head immediately. La Liga, no chance. You're not taking a game. The Premier League floated the idea of this, you remember, BB, about 10 to 15 years ago. They said, let's take what we're going to call a 39th game. We'll have an extra game in the calendar, and then every team basically goes, and it's either one team or every team goes and has a neutral game offshore, random out of a hat. And I mean, imagine if you pick like a Man City or a Liverpool and you're trying to chase a title, and then a team who's on the cusp gets a Sunderland or something like that. So it kind of got knocked in the head very quickly in England. What's happened now is you've got this situation where the AC Milan one I'm okay with, provided they don't try it again. But I just feel like they're opening the door to the precedent here. But the difference there, as you've said, is you've got this whole Milan Cortina Winter Olympics, February 2026. San Siro was out of action during that week because of the opening ceremonies you've said, and perhaps some other. I'm not sure if they've got some other events there. I wouldn't think so with the Winter Olympics. So what that means is that they've genuinely got, for this just one weekend in this one situation, a time where they can't hold the game at their home ground. Now, I mean, why would you put the game down the road in, I don't know, like up in Bolzano, or you're not going to go to Turin, you're not going to go Bologna, you're not going to go to anywhere around you or put it in a small stadium. This is kind of this is a real outlier to go, you know what, we'll take it overseas, we'll expand the league, the sport. Happens to be a big team in AC Milan. Como are a team that are really on the up at the moment, as you know, BB. Cesc Fabregas in charge there. They've got lots of great players. They're building a bit of a project there, which seems to be garnering some interest. So I'm okay with it in that sense. What I don't like, and the strong views I wanted to talk to you about here is that basically when it comes to your Barcelonas, they've wanted to do this for a long time. And this is a money grab. This is a precedent setter. Let's get out there and show everybody how big we are. It's strategically picked as well, BB. I think if you're AC Milan, I don't think coming to Perth is the most strategic thing, if I'm honest. I think, yes, there are a lot of Italians in Australia, but why wouldn't you take it to New Jersey? There's a million Italians, in sort of New York and that wider tri-state area, right? That's a better spot for it, right? Go there and take a game there, or give the game to somewhere in Asia. Hong Kong's hosting a game. You'd get more out of it. So I think in the case of AC, it's just an opportunistic one, which is not even maximising the potential out of it. Just my opinion. So in the case of Real Madrid, and I guess Real Madrid I'm referring there, and then Barcelona. Now, Real Madrid have been in vehement opposition to this. They're saying that we definitely don't want this to happen. That's a lie. They do want this to happen. But, of course, because it's Barcelona who are involved on the other end, they don't want to be the team that misses out on the first goal of this. Now, again, in the case of La Liga versus Serie A, BB, they've strategically picked Miami. It's going to be wonderful. You're talking a hotbed of former Barcelona players. You're talking your Messis, you're talking your Busquets. I think Alba's just said he's going to retire. Luis Suarez. Some of the holy trinity of Barcelona players are there, right? So strategically picked in America, Hard Rock Stadium, 60, 70,000. They're going to maximise, right? So it's a smart move. I think what you're seeing is you'll see continued pushback from UEFA. So from Ceferin and all the heads at UEFA, they'll be like, no, we can't have this. But what I think you'll see like the Javier Tebas's of the world, the La Liga chief, who at the moment, BB, is saying, no, we don't want these to happen. Once they see it happen, same way the NFL have seen it. The NFL, the NBA, you saw MLB. I'm pretty sure they took the Dodgers and Ohtani to Japan, didn't they, BB? And I mean, it was like it created freaking $50 million for them or something like that. So, the situation there is that it's got potential. I like the idea of it, but they've got to get better at how they do it. Now, I don't mind the way that teams have, and Spain have already started. They're taking Super Cups and stuff like that offshore, but I just don't think the integrity of a league or a Champions League can't be done here, and that's the conundrum they got themselves in. So in summary, mate, that's why I don't like it. There's better ways to do this. They already go and do cash grabbing pre-season tours, which fill the gates anyway. Like, what are you going to get out of taking a Liga knee? What, charge a bit more money and sort of say that, there's more to it here because we want to expand our supporter base and stuff like that. You already do that. So that's what I think, mate. I'd love to hear what you think. I think in summary, I'm okay with the AC Milan one, and I sort of got a feeling it may not happen again out of Serie A. It's not as popular of a league as it once was in early 1990, as you were saying, when we were reading 442 and watching Sunday morning Serie A review Les Murray. So things have definitely changed in that respect. But in La Liga's case, I see this as them looking to set a precedent and really start doing more of it.
There's been a very interesting reaction from the domestic Australian soccer scene as well, in that it's presumably the WA government is paid money, paid a fair amount of money to get this to happen, and I don't know where the funds have come from, but there's a lot of people, and every time Wrexham were here recently, and every time they draw a great crowd to the football stadium, but you're left with, a lot of people saying, we have an A-League which starts this weekend. Why are we only getting a quarter of the crowd, if that, to weekly fixtures featuring Sydney FC, Western Sydney, and the like? So what are your thoughts on that, in terms of there's a whole lot of resources going to be poured into getting having AC Milan and Como come here? Could that be better allocated to grow the domestic, the grassroots game? What are your thoughts? Because I have opinions on this as well, but I also come at it from a very sort of unique sort of angle and perspective. But I objectively understand how, if you're a Sydney FC fan, or and even Oz Championship, if you're one of those old school clubs, and you see all this money and attention, it's going to get media attention. If you see all this coming for an AC Milan, for this one-off cash grab, it's going to tourist dollars into the WA coffers and all that kind of stuff. I can understand, and I get where the criticisms come from the Australian scene. But how do you sort of see that? Obviously, you've done a lot of work with the Wanderers, and you're involved in that level of the game here. So how do you sort of view it?
Fabulous question. I'll answer it in this way primarily. Where the A-League is really struggling is that they need to, if the government's going to get involved and inject money, They need to. I think grassroots is at a good level when it comes to Australian football. We know that participation is very, very strong. We know that, boys and girls are still playing the game in massive numbers at junior levels. We know that things like the Oz Championship with the old rooted hard clubs. We saw the first weekend of action this week was magnificent. South Melbourne, Sydney Olympic, Preston, Avondale. We saw Canberra, Croatia. They lost, unfortunately, but they'll be in action, I think, at home this week. That side of things, I think, is brilliant, BB. Where the government needs to step in, or if they're going to step in, is that they need to basically be able to throw money at assisting the league itself get better broadcast deals. Now, this is where we know that your AC Milans, your Arsenals, all your big teams around the world more and more and more, because the broadcast deals are just giving these clubs so much money that they can continue to go and expand into these new markets. And that's where it's all come from. I mean, if you remember, players were semi-professionals still even in the 90s. They've now got so much money out of TV deals. They're paying them a fortune. They're marketing and branding their stars. And a lot of that's come from television. So my thoughts on this would be, to answer your question, if you're the government, I think the last A-League broadcast deal was 180 million. I mean, that is paltry. I mean, the NRL's they're talking a deal, you'd know this, but it's like heading towards the billions, I think. They're heading towards, I know that was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Heading into the billions of dollars now is where AFL is, NRL is. Never mind, mate, the Premier League deals and these things. These are in the hundreds of billions of dollars, these broadcast deals, because they're so valuable. So the government needs to step in if it means giving SBS 50 mil or 100 mil to start broadcasting A-League games, to start putting them in. Now, we've seen a bit of that on Channel 10, okay? So I want to clarify this to make sure everyone knows that I do know that we have it on Channel 10, but I think, as you'll know, like, different channels of television have different viewer bases as well. I'm not sure it's worked that well on Channel 10 in conjunction with Paramount, because it's a different type of viewership as well. I think somewhere like an SBS is a spiritual home. They've got the World Cup next year, but and SBS has got the championship that's on as well through Viceland, through their app and through their channel. But I would look to throw more money at getting a better broadcast deal or assisting them with that. So if the government says we'll double what you think the league's worth on that 180 and make it 360 mil, but we'll get it back on Fox where it worked really well, with the A-League into the Premier League back in the day. What you might need to look at doing now, BB, setting up a Stan Sport, an A-League into Premier League where they have 3, 5:30, 7:30 with a panel into 9:30, in the early days and of Premier League into all when it turns into the later games, making sure you've got a Perth Glory that are playing, at 7:30, which is 9:30, which you can then throw Perth Glory into, into the first Premier League game during daylight saving. So I could go on forever about this, but that would be in my mind where you'd need to look at it a bit more. I know that in where you work, mate, UFC do deals with your newspaper to cover it more. Other sports do deals with News Corp or other entities to put more content in your newspapers. The Stan Sport have done that, haven't they? They've put content in your newspaper for rugby. That's what they need to do, mate. They need to basically get in there and go, we're going to promote this by getting more awareness out there, by getting it in newspapers, on radios, and getting it out there. And that would be my opinion of how to do that. AC Milan's an easy sell. All right, let's pay 20 million and get them here. They'll get their money back, yeah, probably in hotels, in tourism and stuff like that. But that's how they need to go about it, is getting more awareness, getting people attached to their club. And what I mean by that is I'm just not sure the A-League was the right model to go down, because we don't have enough people here. It's working in the MLS in a sense that we've got, 12, 13 clubs in Australia. They've got double that nearly in America, close to 30. But they've also got 12 times the people. So, of course, they can do that. They've got 13, 14 times the people. They can manage it, right? So that's my thoughts in a nutshell. But, I mean, you're the guy at the heart of, the media landscape of the country. Tell me what you think, because that's how I think it needs major attention.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned that too, because we are. It's Wednesday today. Pick up your News Corp paper if you're in Sydney. The Daily Telegraph, Courier Mail in Brisbane, and the Herald Sun down in Melbourne, because we've got a big, great 8-page lift out preview for the A-League season this coming up this weekend. So that, like you say, it's spot on. You need to get it in papers. You need to get it on free to wear. I think is a big thing as well. Although, like you say, I remember back in the day when it was on Fox, your Saturday was set, right? Like you'd go watch. It'd be the A-League into the Premier League, right? So there's that. But yeah, a great lift out. I read it this morning. Robbie Slater's got a few words there. The full Paramount sort of host panel crew. There's a couple of yarns there. Marco Monteverdi and Aaron Smith from our joint as well got a couple of great yarns. So it's good exposure for the A-League. But I think for this is and this is personally now talking from my perspective, there's a big similarity, I think, between the A-League and the Super Rugby. I cover a lot of rugby as well, in that, and to be honest, it's the same with both of those sports, football and rugby, in that the grassroots, so your Oz Championships and your NPLs, like diehard, historic, tied to something, tied to communities, tied to, whatever it is, languages, backgrounds, immigrants, areas. Shoot Shield, really well supported as well. Same sort of thing. Clubland, tied to areas, tied to history, tied to, we're talking decades, a century. Those two things in each sport, the grassroots, I feel gets a lot of love, and there's genuine people that are involved in it, and there's absolute passion. What I see in both sports as well is that there's a little bit of a disconnect up at that next level, up at the Shoot Shield, up at the A-League and in the Super Rugby.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers, crowds can be fairly good, and if you're winning, obviously the crowds are going to come back to the Waratahs or the Reds or Sydney FC or the Wanderers, and if your team's losing, you're going to have empty stadiums, right? So that's part of it. But in general, there's a little bit more of a disconnect, and then for the Wallabies, the Matildas, and the Socceroos, people come back on board, and everyone wants to know it again. So I'd love
to ask you this though, BB. That the A-League, when it started, was this big shiny new ball, and everyone wanted a piece of it. The first 5-6 years of it were magnificent. Wanderers came in, created a bit of a vibe as well when they came in as well. It's died off massively. Mate, Super Rugby, when it started, was massive. I mean, Super Rugby in the early to mid-90s, the Brumbies down here in Canberra were phenomenal, mate. 2001, 2004 premiers, they lost the grand final in there too. They made another grand final, I think, against the Crusaders in maybe 06, 07. Waratahs were making grand finals. I remember they got thumped in one of them in Fog in New Zealand, about 50-odd nil, those Crusaders. But the bottom line is that it was massive, mate. You knew everything about the Chiefs, everything about the Highlanders. You hated them because they were Kiwis. Sorry, mate, but when it comes to rugby, you are the mortal enemy. but basically, like you knew everything about them, mate. I'd go for the Waratahs because I lived in New South Wales. I love the Brumbies too, but I'd have that as a point of difference, mate. I did this when I was in Queanbeyan. I'm in New South Wales. I'd go for the Waratahs. And then it's just died a slow death as well, mate. And that's the part. What I want to ask you is, why? Why has it died a slow death? I don't understand why the A-League has dropped off, why Super Rugby's dropped off. NRL's going from strength to strength. AFL's going from strength to strength. And I don't understand why, because the quality of the sports almost got better. We're worse as a national league, as a national nation as the Wallabies than let's say 10, 15 years ago. But we're not miles off at the moment. Socceroos are having their best spell in a while, but I can't understand why these things are this big shiny ball at the start and then they drop off. Like diehards don't lose interest. Like me and you've been following Arsenal for 25, 30 years. They don't just lose interest. But people have in these sports, and I don't get it.
I don't know what the answer is either. I wish I had an answer. I reckon people at head offices at Rugby Australia and Football Australia probably wish they had the answer as well. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. Up until maybe sort of 10 years ago, the Super Rugby was awesome. It was great. I don't know what's changed. I do get a sense like the Waratahs won in 2014 and had 60-odd thousand at Homebush for the final against the Crusaders. So winning helps, right? Winning smothers over a lot of issues and a lot of down sort of negatives and stuff like that. So that's a part of it. The Waratahs have been pretty poor for 5 years or so. But overall, but in New Zealand, where rugby is genuinely religion, it's so big. Crowds are down. Super Rugby's not as cool as it was. The Warriors on the rise. NRL is this cool, like it's the cool thing back home now. I don't quite know what's changed, what's happened. All I have is guesses and various other things. I think probably the rise of when Super Rugby was strongest, and when the A-League started, obviously we could watch the Premier League, right? But back in the day, you'd never sort of. I don't remember watching any kind of international rugby union. Like we watched Super Rugby, and then you'd have a World Cup, or Ireland would come to New Zealand or Wales or whatever. You know some of these names, Brian O'Driscoll and Paul O'Connell, but all these other blokes that are playing, we didn't watch them. Like there was no broadcast deal to watch, Premier Rugby in the UK or the Heineken Cup or whatever it was, or the French competitions. Maybe that's it. Maybe more and more the best players in both codes are playing in Europe now, or Japan, and in the case of rugby. Perhaps that's an element of it. I honestly don't know. I wish I had the answers, but it's a fascinating one, because I'm going out to Leichhardt Oval on Friday night. Watch West Apia play Sydney United.
How good!
It's going to be fucking. The crowds and the passion, and it's just going to be a good vibe. Whereas
you're going to be buzzing. Yep,
it'll be a buzz, and the crowd, like the ground size is perfect, and all these kinds of things. Whereas I've never felt that the same level of passion for the A-League exists. Although that's probably harsh, because you see great crowds at Melbourne Victory and Western Sydney as well. So there's a fan base, and there's a following, and there is a passion. I should take that back. There is a passion for the sport, but I don't know why it doesn't have the same vibe as your grassroots or your Premier League in the UK. I don't know what it is. It's just not quite the same. It hasn't hit the same as it could have.
Mate, fabulous discussion, mate. I think what we'll be able to do is see the outcome of the Australian Championship and how that goes over the next little while, and see how that translates. We'll have to see how the A-League starts off this weekend, and then we'll be able to be in a position where we can discuss a little bit more, mate. But it's a real shame. I think it's one that we want to see it better in Australia, and we want to see it broadcast more, and that gives our players a chance to shine overseas. But look, fantastic episode, BB. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I'm going to put you on the spot. Fulham away this weekend for the mighty Arsenal. We'll be back Monday morning to dissect the weekend of Premier League. I want to hear what you think our starting 11 may look like. A lot of minutes and a lot of legs. Odegaard out now for another 4 to 6 weeks. I want to hear your 11 for the game, and then we're going to dissect what will hopefully be a good win to come back.
Oh, I don't know what he'll do, Arteta. I think Fulham poses enough of a banana skin that you want to name as close to a strong side as you can.
Great. 1,000,000%. He won't change anything.
Do you think? I think he'll name as strong a side as he can. So I'm looking at Calafiori, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber.
Yep.
Ray obviously in goal. I would like to see Zubimendi in a 3-man midfield. Zubimendi, Eze, and let's go. Maybe look. He backed Marino off the last international window when he had a really good couple of games for Spain. So maybe we'll put Marino in there as well.
I think he might play that 3 in midfield, BB, without Odegaard. I think he might play Marino, Declan Rice, and he might play Zubi as well. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Rice. Yeah.
I knew that's exactly where you're going. You couldn't put your finger on that last person because there's no Odegaard now. I think what you'll see is Victor up top. You'll probably see Trossard again for whatever strange reason. Actually, you may not see Trossard. You might see Saka. You definitely see Saka, sorry. And then you might see Eze, but Eze in a floating role. Bit on the left, bit in the middle. What do you think about that?
I like it. What about Martinelli? He scored for Brazil. Trossard was okay. Look, last couple of games for Arsenal, Trossard's had a game of 2 halves. I thought it was terrible in the first half and then came good in the second half. Played over the weekend. He was all right. He had a couple of chances. I wouldn't be surprised. Either Trossard or Martinelli on that left. Saka on the right. Gyökeres up front. Declan Rice, obviously. Zubimendi and maybe Marino. You're either going to have to leave out Eze or Marino.
I think he's going to go defensive again, BB. I think you've nailed it. He's going to go strong back four, strong midfield three, because I think those criticisms of, where he's played at the handbrake against Man City, different team of Fulham. Like, if you can go there and win 1-0, 2-0, no one will say a word. That's all we got to do is win right now. We just got to win. I'd take a 1-0 right now, no problem at all. Don't even care. 1-0, no chances created, strong midfield three. Saka and Gyökeres, I think, are certainties. After that, it's Eze, Martinelli or Trossard to fit in. And I think that's what we'll see. So, yeah, well said, mate. I reckon that's exactly what we'll see.
And we'll see, we'll see Waneri, Lewis Skelly off the bench. Wouldn't be surprised to see Mosquera come on in the second half at some point. I don't think there'll be too many massive changes. But that's the team I want to see go out and win. That's it. That's all you need to do. That's all we need to do. Let's wrap it up.
Get out of the way.
Let's wrap it up for there. It's been a good episode. We started. We jumped on. We were talking this morning, saying, we'll just do a quick episode. There's not much Arsenal football happening. I think it's going to turn out to be one of our longest. But that's the way it goes when you love talking football. So I'll let you get back to your beautiful newborn. I'm going down to watch West Apia play Sydney United in a couple of days, and then I'll be up in the morning for Arsenal. We'll be back next Monday doing it all again. Steve Peios, speak to you soon, mate.
Thank you, BB. Fabulous, mate. Plenty to talk about next week and then into a Champions League week as well. Love it, mate. Talk soon.